Good afternoon, North Florida. How are you? Can you hear me okay?
Great.
Excellent. So we're going to do our monthly mastermind. Thanks for being flexible. Last week was Gary Keller's mastermind. So we had a lot of luxury agents that were there, and we certainly didn't want anyone to miss out. So today we have a very special guest. So without further ado, Christy, would you like to introduce yourself?
Oh, to follow Gary Keller, no pressure there.
Yeah, no pressure. No pressure.
Totally fine. Hey, everybody, I'm Christy. Excuse me. I'm out in the Denver, Colorado market. I also serve the mountains of Colorado. So generally I say, if you're not really sure who should cover which part of Colorado, just call me. And if it's not my area, I will let you know, because I cover a pretty large area. I am a solo agent and just opened a market center last year in the Boulder, Colorado area. For those of you who have been to Colorado before, Boulder is a university town. I don't know, what else would you like to know?
Yeah, no, we'll get into some great questions. I just wanted you to let everyone know where you're from, the areas you serve, and you are a matchmaker. So I will attest to that. Anytime that we're looking for anyone in that area, Christy can help match you with the perfect person, because I know when we're not from the area, sometimes we're not familiar with the travel time, and then also traveling through the mountains. That can be pretty interesting when you're showing property, depending on time of year and season and all those fun things. I love Boulder. It has a special place in my heart. My mom actually wanted me to go to school there. I did not. I was too afraid to go that far away from my parents, but I always have that kind of thing in my mind where, gosh, maybe I should have done the mountain thing. So I do get to vacation there a lot. So how did you get started in real estate? Because now you own a market center, or you launched a market center. You're an individual luxury agent. How did this all start?
I guess technically back in the 80s, or I have three teenagers, and as they like to say, back in the 19s, which makes me feel really old because we're in the 2000s now. So back in the 80s, my dad did fix and flips. He owned a lumberyard, and he just bought houses in the neighborhood to try to help fix up the neighborhood. And I begrudgingly helped him, as a 10, 11, 12-year-old, tearing out ugly carpet and toilets and ripping out walls. And my first car accident was a forklift, right? So it was, I helped in real estate at a very young age, and then promptly didn't want anything to do with real estate because that's what my dad did. So I started managing hotels. That was really my first career, client experience, that type of thing. And I bought my first house when I was 19. Probably should have been a pretty good indication. I probably shouldn't have been fighting it quite that long. I don't know. I think my instincts have always been around real estate. I have an eye for it. It's been my interest. And we moved quite a bit. My husband moved for his work. We probably moved 4 different times across the country, from Seattle, New York, Texas, back to Seattle. And when we landed here in Colorado, I was really just going to get my license to do fix and flips. Definitely a full circle moment. I was like, I'm never going to do real estate. And then decided I was only going to go back into real estate, doing the thing that I was trying to avoid for so long. And once I started, I think sometimes you have predetermined ideas of what you might want to do in real estate. And sometimes real estate tells you what it needs from you. I really thought I was just going to do fix and flips. And then I thought I was only going to do HR relocations, because I had a background, my hotel background morphed into human resources for about 15 years. So I thought, gosh, I know a lot about human resources, a really big book of contacts, easy layup, why would I not do corporate relos? Well, if anyone's done corporate relos, the math doesn't really make a lot of sense to do HR relos. And I didn't like the math, and I like the math of helping other people. So here I am.
I love it. Well, yes, relocation can be a very tedious, it could be a whole nother job. Same thing with fix and flip. So, depending on if you have the right crew, that can be a whole nother job, but I'm not looking for another job. I would love to leverage as much time as possible. So I love just investing and holding real estate, which is what we talk about a lot. But I think all of that gave you a really good background. So let's go back to the hospitality, because I find a lot of people with that kind of training, they do really well in real estate. So how have you taken that and been able to deliver an ultimate experience for your clients. Tell us about your client experience.
Yeah, so when I was managing the Marriott hotels, I was running a full service Marriott hotel, and then ran courtyards, so a couple different product lines with Marriott. And that was right, excuse me, during the time that Marriott bought out Ritz-Carlton. And we being Marriott, incorporated a lot of the standards and all of the standards really of the Ritz-Carlton. So they were trying to adopt and integrate the Ritz-Carlton culture very heavily into Marriott at that time. So, I mean, of all the times I would say that I could have been a manager of a hotel, that was just, it was amazing. I mean, everything, we had little cards that had our service standards on them. Still to the, where if someone points like this, drives me crazy. You never point like this because it's culturally offensive. It should always be open hand, point this way, right? Because one, you're also not going to poke someone's eye out. But so there's so many subtle little things. If I walk up to a front desk and someone's like this, drives me crazy. I should never see the top of somebody's head. Like, you should be able to work and still have a full, there's just a lot of little details that really affect the way people perceive your professionalism, other than saying which I have never perfected. I'm an ummer, sorry. So I took everything for the buy side and the sell side. I took all of these processes of hospitality management and the client experience, and I said, okay, so if there are 500 steps, I'm going to write down literally all 500 steps. And I do this about twice a year, where I will print everything out, and we tape it up along the wall, and we're like, what are we missing? Or what are we doing too much of? Like, are we saturating people with too much? I'm a gifter. Like, I love to give gifts. And I'm like, am I making it awkward for people? Like, that's my thing. But what if it's too much for other people, right? Where do we need to do more and do less? And we literally will do, just all 500 steps on the buy side and the sell side, just to make sure we're doing just the right amount, not too much and not too little.
I love that you have it all written out and that you look at it twice a year. I see Sammy on this call. Sammy, is she speaking your love language right now? I'm just going to call you out right now because I know you're a director of operations for a luxury team in my office. I mean, you're speaking her language. And I started in operations, so that's where my mind goes. And I love that you got all that training through that changeover once the Ritz-Carlton took over. I actually spent thousands of dollars to go through that leadership training. So I love that that was just part of your career path, and it was perfect timing. And I do believe in no coincidences. So obviously you're in luxury. Did you start in luxury or did you transition? So what did that look like?
Yeah. So again, I thought I was just going to do corporate relos and fix and flips, right? So I really had no plan when I got my license. I'm like, okay, no, I don't know we had been in Colorado. I knew 5 people. I knew my family, my 3 kids, my husband, and the real estate agent who sold us the house. I knew nobody. All of my database was in Seattle. We had been living in Seattle on and off for 20 years. So I was like, well, this is a great plan. I'm going to move to a new state and I don't know anybody, and let's go sell some houses, and I was not afraid to door knock. I think I'm generally, people aren't scared when I open the door for whatever reason. I seem not offensive. I sound like I'm still 12 years old. It works great. People are like, hey. When you bring a 5-year-old with missing teeth and pigtails, I did a lot of coat drives, and door knocking for a coat drive, just letting people know that I'm in the business. And I would have people walk down the street like, hey, coat drive lady. I'm like, I sell houses too. So
but you had a brand, and at least that they were recognizing you for something. I always tell people to bring their children. Who's going to say no to a child?
Well, I think Diana Kokoska did that, didn't she? She used to pull her kids like in the little red
wagon.
And I think I heard that story, and I was like, well, I think she did okay. And if it worked for her, yeah, she did okay. So I think for me, what I found in our price point in the North Denver and our sphere of influence, the neighborhood that we lived in was a luxury neighborhood. So I farmed our neighborhood. I got to be known as the coat drive dash house lady, which worked. at least 50% saturation in our neighborhood. So I was, happy about that. There's benefits and drawbacks, right, to having your farm be your neighborhood. It's a whole different conversation, but organically, just over time, I think within the sphere of people, and then people start referring other people that are like them, that work with them, their friends, their neighbors that are in that similar price point. And I would say probably within my second year, it was becoming an emerging trend, and I was really uncomfortable with it. Somebody said, "Yeah, you should do luxury." I was like, "No, I can't do that. I'm not fancy. I'm not fancy at all." That's for the fancy people. And at the end of the day, just because someone has money doesn't mean that they aren't approachable. They put their pants on the same way. And it was really everything I did with a hotel. We used to deal with celebrities and CEOs every day. And so when I really stopped to think about, just because someone has money doesn't mean that they don't deserve the same great service. And they want someone to treat them like a human being and do a job. At the end of the day, there are a lot of people that we're surrounded with that don't do a great job. And the standards are definitely higher. There's less margin for error. You have to be on top of your game 100%. They're paying you to be the best. And I think that's probably one of the biggest differences with luxury. It's about a third of my business is luxury.
I love it. So obviously we want to talk about listings because everyone wants luxury listings because then the buyers will always come. So we always focus on listings. What kind of different marketing approach do you do to attract buyers? Now, I know some of your secrets because I've received packages from you marketing your luxury listings. So if you can share one of those examples, that was a surprise and delight for me as a referral agent. And the presentation of that package, in addition to what was in it, went so far. Like, I still drink out of that coffee cup that was in that package. It keeps my coffee, and now my mud water, I'm shifting over to mud water. It keeps it the hottest out of any cup, and it just has your branding on there. My husband tries to steal it from me all the time, and you know him, he's going to try and get that cup. So give us some examples of how you are attracting, which I think is more important than ever right now, right? We actually have to market to sell our luxury listings. For the last 2 years, anyone could sell luxury, right? So give us some examples of what you do.
So the gift that Brandy was referring to, the box, I actually have some. I don't know if y'all want to take a walk and talk. I'll walk and talk with.
I would love it. This is like a hands-on training. We feel like we're in Colorado. Don't tease me. That's my home state. I was born there.
This is my. I didn't know that. I don't know how I didn't know that.
I was born in Colorado Springs and then moved to Florida.
Okay. Yeah. So this is the office that I opened last year. And I'm just going to get this box that I sent to Brandy that she's talking about. So the gift box that I sent to her was specifically for a mountain luxury property. And the market had really stalled out, I would say, at the beginning of the spring, right, when the house was going on the market. And so we had to be creative, right? And I was like, okay, so about 50% of the sales for the mountains in Breckenridge, Frisco, Silverthorne, that area, just west of Denver, 50% of the sales come from Denver folks, right? They move here because they want to vacation and do all these things. So, but 50% don't. So how do I get in front of those 50%? Sure, we can do the flyers and we have targeted marketing that we can do. And you can buy the lists. But I was like, I have these amazing agent friends like Brandy. And how do I tell them about this place? And so there's a little box like this, okay? And then.
And I hope you all saw she had ribbon around it as well prior to her opening it.
Oh yeah, sorry. So yeah, there was ribbon, and then
very important.
I have a little QR code thing that they scanned. You open it up, and it's the first thing that you notice is that it smells. It smells really good because I bought some soap from a local soap shop that stamped Breckenridge, and it just. I think more people mention the smell of the soap because it's very sensory, right? If you're Brady sends candles and says, we'll sell your house before the wick burns out. But it's sensory, right? The smell is a very associated sense. And if you can trigger that, and also the coffee mugs, I guess everybody just loved the coffee. That was another thing. I guess everyone loved the coffee mug. So I was selling the town. I wasn't just selling the house, I was selling the experience. And that's really what people at the luxury level, you're not just selling, the four walls and the roof and the floor, right? You're selling the lifestyle. So postcards, right? So this is just get them at the gas station. See, we have a little map of the town. This is just stuff that I'm sure you guys have for your area. And the coffee mug everyone loves. It's a Yeti cup, right? So this thing I get when you talk about experience. So we can buy pens, notepads, any chip clips, all the things. This thing is it's a very Colorado thing in a lot of ways because, we have extreme weather. It's very sturdy. So people take this camping. The number of times that I get, people at the top of a mountain holding my cup, like, that's awesome. I love that. But what I really wanted to do, so there's more stuff in here. There's I think I put some whiskey or, some like hot toddy type stuff, and you're not supposed to ship alcohols.
There was booze in there for sure.
Yeah.
I mean, I did not drink it. No.
Yeah, I was gonna say, yeah, and I'm not gonna tell you to do that because I don't think you're supposed to do that. But you know when to break rules. But what we did was this is VR goggles. And so basically, all you do is you open it, you put your phone in here, and then so your phone goes right in here. And then when you put the goggles on, you're looking through my listing. So you can be in Florida or Nashville or Seattle. And I wanted Brandy to be able to hand this to a client and say, you have to see this place in Colorado, and then have them literally looking around and walking room by room. So if you guys have ever put on VR goggles, and you can spend $300 on these. I think we spent $30 for these. So they weren't the least expensive. They weren't the most expensive. And yeah, so I think, at the end of the day, every house requires you to be creative in its own way. And it's how can you sell that experience and that lifestyle and communicate that to somebody else.
What I loved about the packaging is you're right. I felt like you made me feel a part of your community. So anytime that I tell agents or ask them, what do you think that you should send? I'm hoping that they'll really self-discover sending something local from a small business owner is so important, because you're sharing a little piece of paradise from wherever you, especially in a resort and second home market. We have a lot of small businesses because it's either a small town or a small city, and you want to support them. And then it's a win-win for everyone. So speaking of resort and second home, is there anything else you do that's specific to selling a resort and second home type community?
So the way I actually got into the second home and resort community. So originally it was Denver, right? People, when they move to Colorado, they say, do we want to live in Denver? Do we want to live in Boulder? And they're only 20 minutes apart. And I'm primarily in the Boulder area. But there's enough people that are, still in Denver, that's fine. And then it was a very predictable pattern that I figured out within 18 to 24 months of moving here. People got sick of the commute up and down the freeway, right? They're stuck in traffic for 3 to 5 hours, holiday weekends, it's awful. And eventually people are like, we want to live the dream. Just having our regular house and our everyday house is not enough. We want to enjoy the mountains and the ski areas, and just literally 5 minutes after we wake up, we want to be on the mountain. And so I have learned how to pace my communication, my touch points with them, ask them if they're going to the mountains, right? It's all about what are they doing and how are they enjoying Colorado. And I would say that, there are leading questions that you can ask folks about, so you go to the mountains a lot. Are you guys skiing? Do you go to this one or this one? There's one that's local. It's 45 minutes away. It doesn't require them to buy another house. But if they're going up to Breckenridge, Silverthorne, Dillon, Keystone, they're eventually going to need a place. So if I'm figuring out, no, they're going to keep going to the one that's 45 minutes away, they're probably not going to be somebody who's going to put a second home. And a very, very large portion of the folks that I service have that expendable income to be able to buy either a condo, a second home, Airbnb. There are a lot of considerations now post-COVID with short-term rentals, and you really have to be an expert. They've really locked it down in the mountains and capped the number of investment properties that people can have. So at the end of the day, if somebody wants someone who lives in the mountains full time, that's not me. And I've got my referral partners, and I'm like, look, if you want someone who is going to that target, it's the best target in all of Colorado, I think, is in Silverthorne. But if you're okay with, I basically figured out that my clients are very loyal, which I appreciate. And they didn't want me referring them to anyone else. They were like, nope, we're going to wait until you can go. And then we're going to sync up our weekend, and we're just going to all be up there for the weekend. Great. Awesome. Or I'll say, I'm going to be up for these 4 or 5 days. Do you guys want to come up? And they're like, yeah, sure. No problem. And it's, so that's kind of how I fell into the second resort market out of Denver, is really just because my folks would not let me refer them out. And I wanted to be able to serve them at this level.
I think that you delivered that ultimate experience. And so for them, they wanted it to be consistent. And I think that's so important to understand as an agent. When you are referring out, you have to make sure that person is going to deliver at the same level. And that's actually how we expanded. I'm in Sarasota, but we cover 5 counties. And so we've either had to partner with people or just expand our reach based on budget, price point, lifestyle, all those things that you were referring to. I have heard that a lot of the rental ordinance had changed. And I know that the Airbnb trend got a little out of control, and people got away from buying and holding real estate for a long period of time. And so I started mailing out the whole book to a lot of my clients, because I don't know if they went on YouTube and listened to people on there to do all these Airbnbs. I'm not sure what happened. But then some of them, got caught with these properties and then had to figure out, and they expected the same cash flow. So I always think just buy and hold is always a great plan. We do have people here, though, that are doing something similar in Sarasota, where they will have an investment property on the barrier islands, and they will rent that out, whether weekly or monthly, depending on the rules and restrictions in the specific condominium, or if it's a single family home based on zoning. And they love that because it's more of a staycation place than a true investment. So that works for them. So I think it would be similar there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so, it's, we've had a lot of folks. I mean, even during COVID, there were a ton of people that moved from California, for example, that you can get so much more house here than you can in California. Even in, higher price points like Breckenridge, it was still, compared to California. Now it's kind of leveled off now because California has these big ups and downs, where Colorado is definitely more of a stable economy in terms of our price points. We really don't have these big ups and downs. I would say our price points in the mountains do have more of a swing. The second home resort markets definitely are a little bit more volatile. Denver, Boulder, steady. Even through 2008, it didn't go down. It just leveled off. So it's been interesting to see just the number of people that are actually relocating from different areas just for lifestyle.
Yeah, we've had a lot of people come from California, Texas, which was very non-traditional. Our number one feeder market has always been Illinois, which is Chicago area, mainly Midwest. And now we have a lot of New York and New Jersey too, coming from either the East Coast. We even have people coming from Miami. They're wanting to get away from the big city to go to a small city, because we still have all the lifestyle and amenities and the arts and culture that they're used to, but less traffic. And in my opinion, we have better beaches, but I'm a little biased. So I'm going to ask you a few more questions, and then we're going to open up to everyone on here to Mastermind, ask questions, and kind of engage with you and any other person on here that has any advice. So do you have any specific training or books that really helped you, or that you're currently reading that might help someone else on this call, and specific to luxury or experience?
I mean, the Ritz-Carlton, the book, what is it? The
Gold Standard.
Yeah, Gold Standard. I was just looking, I have a stack of them usually.
Okay.
So that's one thing that I do is I actually keep, when I like a book, I'll buy 25 of them and just give them out to folks. So I think that the gold standard definitely is a good one. I think, I went through the training course, 20, even though I managed the hotels and I taught the process, I was still curious. You fast forward 10 years, I'm like, I wonder if you just get something different every time. I think every time, you read the MREA or a book like that, you're at a different phase than you were. Think about the difference between COVID, pre-COVID, during COVID, and now, right? And the different iterations that you have been as a human being and then as a real estate agent. And you're going to be looking at those books from a completely different perspective than you did pre-COVID, during COVID, and right now. So I go back to that book a lot. I love the seven levels of communication. I can't remember who wrote it, but I think there might have even been a KW person. It's not rocket science, right? It's a lot of basics. You're writing cards, you're reaching out, but it's a layered technique of how you communicate. And it's not any one of them is this magic bullet, like, oh, if I just do this one thing, if I just write no cards, I'm going to have this huge business. It's the way you layer them. And there are a lot of real estate books, I think, that made things overly complicated, or made it seem, like if I just do these 5 things, I'm going to be really successful. And I think sometimes it's just the symphony of the way you put things together. So the 7 levels of communication is probably one of the better ones for real estate specifically.
I'm going to reread those. I've also been rereading a lot of Jack Cotton's book, which are like, if you look at the cover of the books, a lot of them are so old and it's like, does this still work? And I think one of them is working with the affluent, or how to attract the affluent. And I was rereading that the other day. And sometimes I reread those books to train, because I do a lot of training and coaching and consulting. And so sometimes it just helps you kind of break down the content and you can kind of mix that in there, just like you were saying. And I like what you said about being in a different place in your business. I often remind agents that, especially now being in leadership, because I've been to bold so many times. And if I would have said no, because I went in fall or spring and didn't go in the next session, I almost said no to a fall session with Rich Carpenter. And I always use the story. I had taken 110 listings that 8-week session with Bull because of his coaching. And he's in our North Florida region, so we're very spoiled. But what if I would have said no to that? My business would have looked very different that next season, because our season is January through April. If I would have just said, no, I'm taking the month of November off. It's Thanksgiving. I'm not going to Bold. So I'm so appreciative. At that time, it was not in leadership, my leadership pushing me. And I was in a place where I needed it so bad because I was getting a little complacent because we were selling so much just naturally at that time. Okay, so I know you attend, this is my last question. I promise we're going to open up to Q&A. We're right on time, right around 12:30. I open up to Q&A so we can engage. You always attend Family Reunion Mega Camp, and you're very strategic. I have watched you and how you engage with people there, and you're an excellent listener and you ask really thought-provoking questions. So do you come up with like a list of people before you get there who you really want to be in a relationship? And can you give any tips and tricks on that for anyone that maybe has not attended or is too busy to go to these events, and what value you found out of that?
Yeah, it's interesting. I don't think I went to a mega camp or family reunion for maybe the first year or two. I'd have to go back and look and see which was my first one. And I was like, okay, when you're new in real estate, there's so many expenses, right? It just seems like money's flying out the door. I mean, business cards, whatever, like you get your free box of business cards, but it's just like everybody wants your $99 a month, right? And I was like, is it really worth it? And so I went to my first one and I was so overwhelmed. It was just, I was one human being in a sea of 15,000 people who all seemed to know each other. And I was like, everyone's hugging and oh my God, it's so good. I'm like, I literally know nobody. And I was so relieved when I saw someone from I like hugged a person I've never hugged a day in Denver, but like, oh my God, somebody I know. And I was like, everyone's like, it's so valuable. I was like, okay, so clearly I'm doing it wrong. And so I became a student of how do you do it better? Like clearly there's a there. There's learning to be done. Sure. Yeah, I'm a lifelong student. I'm always listening to podcasts, books, the whole thing. But there's value in these agents. And so maybe I was, slow on the uptake that, hey, referral partners are a great thing. And very social, I'm a classic real estate agent, I guess a high D, high I, right? And so my high I was overwhelmed by just not knowing. I basically shut down. So I was like, okay, so if I'm going to do this better. And it was interesting because I think Natasha, who you and I, that's how we connected and met. She walked up to me and I was like, that's genius. So she basically had put together like 20 little gift bags that were branded with her thing. And they were like little Texas gift bags. And she literally would just see somebody and just walk up and like, hi, I'm Natasha. I'm from Texas. Where are you from? And she would give a little, gift bag that had some things that were memorable and they were branded for her and, have a little conversation and then she'd move on. But she found a way to make new connections. I was like, okay, well, that's kind of like door knocking. It's cool, but you got to haul everything to, Austin or wherever you're going. You've got to put together the little things. I've done that. What I've found now, as I say, okay, where are my feeder markets? All the feeder markets that you were just talking about are exactly our feeder markets. We've Chicago, Texas, Florida, a lot of New Jersey, New York, Connecticut, because we have a lot of corporate relos. And then the people I just enjoy spending time with. We don't have a ton of folks from Nashville. Some of my favorite agents are in Nashville. Like I just love everybody in Nashville. So I'm like Hawaii. I honest to God have manifested so many referrals in and out of Hawaii because I personally love Hawaii. And some of my favorite agents are there. So I pulled together folks for happy hours, dinners, lunches, and I try to keep it between 6 to 10 people. I usually invite around 12 because people will fall off, but then somebody is always inviting an extra person. So I used to just do one. Now I'm doing about basically 3 for every family reunion and mega camp. I'll do a happy hour, a dinner, and a lunch. And I do it and I organize it. So I have a lot of touch points. I get to reach out to my favorite people. It's just a great excuse to visit and catch up. And we don't always get a chance because they're not sitting next to me. So if I invite Brandy, she might be sitting at the other end of the table and I don't get a chance to really visit with her a ton, but maybe she gets to come to the happy hour and the lunch. And between those two, we get to visit quite a bit. And I'm still front of mind. So when she thinks of Colorado, hopefully she's thinking about me versus, one of the other 40,000 agents that we have in Colorado. We have a lot of agents just in our area. So, for me, it's just a way to basically hang out with my friends. I think it's that thing that Gary says, right? You get on a plane to go visit your friends. About a third of my business is from agent referrals. So, for me, it's both selfish because I enjoy spending time with everybody, but it's also strategic.
Yeah, I really didn't understand that when I first merged my brokerage with KW, and it was really a team. It was interesting when Gary said that, and he says that a lot in his top masterminds, where someday you will get to the point where you have to get on an airplane to actually go see your friends. And now it makes perfect sense because I feel like I'm on an airplane more than I am at home now, which has gone from one end to the other. And yeah, I mean, you end up forming these bonds and these relationships with these people outside of business. And I think that's really powerful. I did not go to family reunion or mega camps the first couple of years. I thought I was too good for it. I know everything about real estate. I was selling a lot. And I remember the first time I went, I think Tim Heil was on stage, and I don't know, he looked like he was 21. He still looks like he's young, but I don't know how old he was. I was much older than him. And he was talking about selling more than $100 million in real estate. And at that time, I don't know, I was doing like 50 or 60. So it seemed like a lot to me, but I'm looking at this guy that's like, obviously at least 10 years younger at that time than me, going, okay, he's literally just out of college or high school. And all he did was follow the systems and the models of the MREA. That was it. It was very simple. Started calling people, his sphere, cold calling in a closet. He was literally like in a closet calling people. He didn't even have an office. So I'm like, okay, light bulb. This is actually, I need to be in the room with these people to figure out what they're doing. And it was really simple. Read the MREA over and over again and just implement those models. So finally I did it.
Yeah. And I think, organically over time, you're going to find people that are either with KW or different brokerages that do business the way you do business. And there are patterns in those methodologies that people do. Like, you know, I rented that house in Scottsdale. So there's an organization called Her Best Life and Empire Circle and the whole thing. And so I always, whenever I go to a conference, I try to stay a day early or a day late, just to not just hurry up, get on the plane, just go check the box. Yes, I talked to, you know, I got 100 cards. So what? Like, you got 100 cards. That's impressive. But it's the relationships, right? You have to, I think it's better for me to have 5 or 6 strong connections with people than to get 100 business cards just so people can be on my mailing list. That's for me useless. So to the point where, even was it last October, I guess it was, we rented a house and I invited 13 different people to basically, you know, stay a couple days before this conference. And we rented this beautiful mansion basically in Scottsdale. And we had so much fun. We're doing it again. We're going to St. Thomas in 2 weeks. So
yeah, I believe that was Ellen who serves that area. I remember the group meet, and then I think Renee went in my place because of the hurricane
yes.
or something. And yeah, it was really nice that you got to meet Renee, because she still thanks me. She's like, I really wanted you to go, but I'm glad you didn't go because I got to meet all these wonderful ladies. So it was meant to be. Okay, we're going to open up to questions because it's 12:37. Mark, I see your hand up from Naples, Florida. I was just in Naples. I visited your beautiful beaches, and they're just as beautiful as Mark tells you they are.
Thanks you, Brandy, for the opportunity. Hi, Christy. I got in late because I had a difficulty connecting, and I caught the last part about the box that you sent out with the soaps sent. Was that for the Indian Creek road home?
No. So this was, the Indiana 996.
Right.
Indiana. Yes. Mm-hmm.
Good. And I apologize if you said it already. Could you tell us how you got the listing, and if there was anything else that you did to actually get it sold? Did you sell it yourself, or did you connect with the buyer's agent? Anything that might have been unique about that listing?
Oh gosh. Yeah. So that very unique neighborhood. It was a very affluent neighborhood. I have a weird high ratio of closing sales on open houses. I don't just host open houses to get new buyers. I actually have a pretty high ratio of finding a buyer at my open house. So that particular house, I hosted several open houses. It was not a terrible location to be able, to have to do that. And there was a young couple that came through, and they were probably in their, I'd say early 30s, maybe. I don't think they were in the late, probably early 30s. To me, that's young. And they came through, they had 2 little kids under 6 or 7 years old, and very, very casual. And they kind of walked in, and it was 7,000 square foot, mansion in the mountains basically. And, so people walk in and like, wow, you kind of, they feel a little like it was an impressive property. And I generally am pretty casual. And so I think I made them feel comfortable. I had a movie playing downstairs, and I had toys and stuffed animals and things down in the movie area so the kids could feel comfortable. Because I found if the kids are hanging out and occupied, it gave the parent, the adults, time to actually look around. They didn't feel like they were having to shepherd the kids around and don't break anything. Like it can be stressful when you take kids to an open house, right? And so for me, it was all about, if you occupy the kids, they're gonna spend more time. And literally, I think they were there for 2 hours. And the kids, one of the first things the kids said, hey, they have, I think it was Moana, I had on TV. They have Moana. We want to live here. Can we stay here forever? And my realtor was like, yes, you can stay here forever. And they ultimately were the ones that ended up buying the house. And I think it truly was because I didn't make them feel uncomfortable, that they were young. And, I didn't discredit the fact that they could potentially buy this house. And I also again, it's the lifestyle. I was selling the entire lifestyle.
I like that you mentioned their age. A NAR report just came out. I don't know if you've all downloaded it. I'm happy to circulate it to anyone that wants to email me. But it was 4.4 million people will be turning 30 and getting into the real estate market, is I believe the stat. Don't quote me on that. I'll send you the stat, but I believe that's what I remember from reading the article that Lawrence Young put out. So I think it's important to, one, make people feel comfortable. I had a gentleman wearing cargo shorts and like a t-shirt that looked like it had been run over by a train walk into my office one time, and we had connected online. At that time we had relocation site. There was no Zillow, so it was great. They had to come to us for all the information, and he ended up buying a beachfront home. Probably would be worth 5 million now. It was 2.2 at the time, and it was his third home. He had, I think, a 14 or 15,000 square foot home in Indiana, but he was very casual, like flip flops. Like he just got off of the boat fishing. Like it looked like his shirt like had fish on it. Like it was so crazy. And he just said, I've interviewed 3 agents, and you're the one that like didn't judge like me being relaxed. I'm in Florida. I want to go sit on the beach or be on the boat. And he bought the house cash over Christmas holiday. And we had to get it closed during that Christmas week. So I had to find an attorney that would do it for me. I'm like negotiating on Christmas Eve.
Yeah.
But it was a good time.
Especially your resort market areas. Maybe Seattle, kind of groomed me for this a little bit, where you literally could have a billionaire and they would walk in cargo shorts and flip-flops. And just because they were dressed that way, and sometimes they dress that way just so people would underestimate them. They wanted to blend in, right? They didn't want to stand out. They aren't flashy money. Typically in Seattle, there's parts, some people, yes, the Russell Wilsons of the world, a little flashier. But they're, for the most part, and I would say that's largely true here in Denver and up in the mountains, is that people are very casual, and they need somebody that can toe that line of being casual, respecting them, and still doing a good job, and just being I don't know, the number of times people said, you're just normal, like you don't treat me like, yeah, I've got a $10+ million contract right now, and he's definitely a flashier money kind of guy, but at the end of the day, he just wants me to do a good job. He just wants me to do a good job.
That's all they want. I just picked up a listing, and it's over 10, and it's with the team that I'm going to, lead it. Which normally I would coalesce with one of my teamers and they would lead it. But in this case, because of that price point, I told him he's getting me back out of retirement. I'll go back into production for his listing. I was teasing him and he laughed, because I was just being real with him. And he said, you're the only one that wasn't begging me for the listing or taking forever to get back to me as if it was not a big deal to them. So there was no in between. And I was kind of this person that was just being, I guess, like you said, normal. So I found that really interesting, the feedback. And he's constantly giving me feedback, which I think is important. It's 12:43. We still have some time left with Christy. Thank you so much. This has been great. I wish I had my notepad out, but some people are getting disconnected and reconnecting. So I have to keep an eye on admitting people back in with internet connections. So hopefully they worked it out. Does anyone have a question? You can take yourself off of a space bar if you're on a Mac. I don't know how it works on a PC, but you can take yourself off mute or raise your hand.
Christy, can I ask another question since nobody else has raised their hand? I know during COVID, you started a Facebook group for summer survival. Do you do a lot with Facebook and with groups? And do you have other groups that you've created?
I don't. Who was it? Is it Nikki? I think she was in Florida too. I don't even remember, but she inspired me. I think, there's different things that you can learn. And in real estate, there's always a squirrel to chase, right? There's always somebody's doing something. You're like, oh, I can do that. That seems easy. And so for me, I think I'm a connector. I didn't realize I was, but people keep telling me I am. So for me during COVID, I was really trying to find a way to keep our community, grounded, and just know that we were all in it together. And for me, so I started that Facebook group. It was the Boulder area parent survival. And then post-COVID, I was like, well, now we're, out of, post-COVID. So we ended up changing the name. So now it's the Boulder Area Everything Parent Survival Group. And it's, I still do post in it. People I probably get, 50 requests a week. I don't let any other real estate agents in. So it does take some time to actually, I have to go through everyone's profile to make sure they're not a real estate agent, because I'm like, I started the group. I don't want any other agents in there. It's my group. I don't post anything really real estate related, but it's more subtle. So as an example, during COVID, I had an art contest where kids could submit pictures of their house or their favorite thing about their house, either the room or the outside of their house. And then we had a contest and we gave away little either bird houses or bee boxes. And so they're all house related. But so for me, it's, I bristle at the overly pushy, overly branded real estate person that's just like, look at me, I saw houses. I think there's a way to be a part of our community and be subtle about it, be helpful about it. And, again, try to be normal. Like if I had a real estate agent that was in my neighborhood and they were always, dropping things on my door, I wouldn't like that. But, something, if they had a drawing contest that was house related for my kid, I'd be like, well, that's clever. That's cute. Right. And so I probably overthink it a lot, but, we share our, the title companies will have the list of things that you can do that, you brand at the bottom. So that's really probably the heaviest branding I do for real estate, but it's coming from contribution and value. Like, if I'm a parent, I just need somebody, I've got 3 kids. I don't know what to do this weekend. Just help me in my life. Right. And so that's what we do for that Facebook group. But I
love that you didn't, you're not putting a bunch of real estate in there. Like there's a place on your business page to kind of make that a little bit heavier content. We started a small business group for the small business owners because obviously we didn't know if we're going to be shut down for a long time. So I started interviewing small business owners on Zoom that were local just to kind of keep the energy going. And I posted it in there and that group is still going. Sometimes I forget about it, but because I don't, put any open house or anything like that in there. I don't even know if anyone in there knows I'm a realtor, honestly, or that I even manage the group, but I just welcomed a bunch of new people the other day. I'm like, oh my gosh, I hope they weren't sitting there too long before I welcomed them because, it's not something I thought would keep going on. But I also used it because we did a Feed a Healthcare Hero in our area. It's like medical, hospitality, hotels, restaurants, and realtors. Like there wasn't really a lot of industry at that time. And prior to that, so we got all the realtors, my husband and I, and we work for 2 different brands. So we kind of combined brands and did like a broker agnostic thing with the board. The board caught on later, but we got all the realtors to deliver meals to the hospital workers, the police officers, all the people that were working like 2 weeks and like quarantine from their family, if not more. We were delivering hot meals, not that they couldn't afford their own meal, but we were trying to infuse money into the restaurant. So we did a GoFundMe and we raised like $40,000 in a couple of days. So then the board of realtors called us and we're like, hey, can we, have your realtors from any brand? We don't care. We want to come together as a community to show like we're here to support. So the realtors would volunteer to come pick up the bags at my house. I would put their name on there for them to get recognition. The donation, the person that contributed a specific amount, and then the actual people it was going to. And it kind of kept morale high for a long time. And then of course we opened right back up, but it was fun. It was good to get together with everybody.
I think that's working with different, not just KW. KW is amazing, right? It's huge. We have a really big reach, but it's not just KW. So to the point where with fantastic timing of 2 weeks before quarantine, we started a luxury home tour that was for all brokerages. And we nursed it along during COVID via Zoom. And then we're actually relaunching it, first tours next month again. But I think when you can partner with other agents from different brokerages, your value and the strength of your knowledge in the market is huge, right? And so it just makes all of your deals easier, I think, going forward. And if there are any bumps along the road, like your reputation, the number of deals that I've gotten and been able to get my clients a better price because I have had these interactions with agents from different brokerages that are non-KW. They're like, yeah, you guys totally won because I know that deal's going to be easy when I work with you. Like it's going to be professional. There's no, the surprises there. Yeah, there's a surprise in every deal, but it's going to be nothing. It's going to be fine. We're still going to close. My clients are going to be happy. Your clients are going to be happy. And that's, so I think anytime you can find an opportunity to do things like the meal thing or the luxury home tour or anything like that, where you can still mix and integrate and have relationships with outside brokerages is, I think, helpful.
Yeah, I think it's so important. 82%, according to NAR, are agent to agent connections, the deals that are had. And I think it's important. We actually have on our listing consultation the different people that we belong in networking clubs with, and we'll host it at a different luxury listing each month. We'll have food, and it's always that someone, it could be Coldwell Banker next week, it could be Sotheby's, it could be Remax, it doesn't matter. We're all there to support each other as professionals. And we don't even, I forget sometimes which brokers they're with because I'm in relationship with them. So I think that's the most important thing. And sellers love that. I've had sellers even ask me, well, which deal should we go with? The price are all pretty similar. Which one do you have a really good working relationship with as far as professionalism? I mean, that's what some luxury sellers want to know, So I think that's great. I think Stephen had a question, and then I think there's something in the chat. So Stephen, while you're asking the question, I'm going to go ahead and go in the chat and make sure I got everyone in here.
Okay, Brandy. Christy, thank you for being along with us. This is my first luxury course here, I guess. I'm just trying to feel this out and see what you guys say and how it all comes together. I've only been with Keller Williams, Chris McLaughlin's office over in New Tampa. KW since beginning of 2009. Okay. I also sell out in Alabama as well, licensed out there. But as far as luxury properties, what is your scenario as far as, and actually, Christy, you actually touched on it, open houses and whatnot. I have had a property that I have list right now, 8249, and where's the start of luxury that, from your guys' perspectives? I've both heard you say over 10 million. That's great. We live out here in the sticks where I live, a little place called Dade City, Florida. And, I have a couple of properties, acreage and whatnot. So it's nice to be out here, but at the same time, I'd love to be out in Gainesville where my listing is too. Okay. I learned a while ago, I guess back when I first started, that your farming area, which Christy, you've touched on, Brandy, could be anything. In actuality, it was only like a 3-county area back when I first started. And to me, we're licensed in the state of Florida, so why not do the state of Florida? Okay. You're only limiting yourself if you don't. But at the same time, help me understand at what point on a luxury property would you, if you're not selling it yet, if there's a reason for not selling it. It's been on the market for 50 days, which is a long time for me. So I'm kind of not used to that scenario.
I think knowing your numbers is really important. And I think Brandy and I are very similar in this way, that especially when you're in the luxury price point, people are paying you not just, to present their property and, put together this nice little box and the marketing part of it, but they need you to know your numbers inside and out. And so for me, knowing that my luxury listings are going to take longer, and specifically how much longer they're going to take to go to contract over something, I need to know if it's under $1 million, if it's $0 to $1 million, it's going to take 7 showings in 14 days on average. And if we're at 14 days and we haven't had 7 showings, we need to do something. Either we need to present the property differently or we need to adjust the price. It's usually 2 different things. One of a stone not left unturned for me is staging. It's a big part of my business. I'm now starting a staging company because so if you go to 2733slate.com, it's one of the luxury listings that I have right now. I stage that whole house. It's all my stuff. They do have some of the bigger things like sofas and dining room tables, but so with that property, I've got a 16-page listing. It basically looks like a calendar, right? It's a calendar style, but it's a 16-page listing brochure. We've got the website, marketing it to agents across the country. So right. I've got 50 different things that I do to market it. And
Right.
if it's still not moving, then we need to say, okay, it's probably not presentation, it's probably not marketing. Then that means that the market right now, if we're at the number of days, which is average, then it might be the price. And we need to adjust our expectations, because I can pick the price, the buyer, my seller can pick a price, but at the end of the day, if the market doesn't agree, the market doesn't agree. And
right. Yeah, and I agree wholeheartedly with what you just said. And a lot of, when I took a look at the property, it has acreage on it, of course. It's a good size home, 38 square foot, 10.75 acres. It's 2 miles down from the Gator Nationals, if you've ever heard of what the Gator Nationals are, a raceway out there in Gainesville. And
I know what that is.
There you go.
I'm a Florida girl.
9 minutes. Yeah, and it's 9 minutes from the what is the Gainesville Airport in itself. 15 minutes from downtown Gainesville.
I have a really good idea, and I've been doing this with a lot of agents, being the regional luxury ambassador. They send me their either YouTube or Matterport, whatever link you feel is appropriate, and a couple of high resolution digital photos, the highest resolution, not your MLS photos, and a brief description, and I include it in my monthly newsletter. So I would be happy to do that for you if you want to send that out, and then I can send it out to people like Christy or people I might have relationships with that you might not have met yet, and vice versa. Maybe you'll do that for me one day. So I think that's important to do. And if you send it to me offline, I'd be happy to help you with that. And I do agree with what Christy said.
Brandy,
Go ahead.
No, but yeah, that's great. I'll say this: I'm a military guy myself. Okay, yeah. So 99% of everybody that I sell, I do both sides of the house. So I've always been a believer in not staying a buyer or not staying a seller market, but do both markets. Okay, I've never gotten used to just one side. Okay, but at the same time, I do 99% of all military or military families. Okay.
Are you involved with any, we do a lot of charity work with veterans, my husband and I, so I'd love to chat with you offline. But I don't know if you work with any organizations, sure. But we actually spearhead Operation Second Chance in our area. We put together different packages for wounded veterans, no press. We don't have, no media is allowed, no cell phone pictures are allowed. And we fly them in and we take them on fishing charters for free. They get put up in a hotel. So if there's, if you're not connected with some of these organizations or you are inclined to get involved with something local, I highly advise that. My husband's a Marine. He's also a real estate agent with another brand, but we still do it together. And he just did a charity event this weekend and we raised, I think, $80,000 for a golf tournament. And it was only a second one. So it's pretty good for a golf tournament. Those are hard to raise a lot of money with charity.
Then he was part of my team. I was Navy myself, okay. From 01 to 09 and presently a military Army contractor. Okay. And I've served over in Afghanistan for just about 3 years in Kuwait and different locations. But when I come back, I'm a realtor. You know
what? Sometimes the military, they make great realtors. So I think you're great. I think it's wonderful.
Well, you asked if I did anything as far as a side scenario for military wise. My wife and I sell a lot online. Okay. Multiple locations online. Okay. We have probably over, 70,000 books. I get them from libraries, after their sales on a weekend or whatever. I go to like DAV, American Legion, VFW, and then I don't like to say old folks home, but the scenarios where older military guys would live and gals. Yeah, okay. And I give to those locations versus selling online also, but I'll take and set up an entire library at one of those facilities and just, give it to them. Buddy of mine, Bobby Walborn, actually had let me use his huge truck that he has for his clients that purchase a home. They need to, move their furniture around or whatnot, from home to home. And I'll take his truck and go pick up the books, and then I'll go and drop them off at different locations and take them back and say, thank you, Bobby.
I love it.
I'm throwing one in for Bobby right now.
Well, I appreciate
Bobby's KW, and he's been you know, he's been KW longer than I've been. So
awesome. Well, we have one more question, so I want to squeeze this one because Julia has been so patient. Thank you, Stephen, for contributing. We love your engagement. So Julia says, we have two questions here. I'm a newbie. Any suggestions for brand new agents? Where and how do you get your first seller and buyer? Could you share your worst and best experiences? I'll let Christy answer this. And I do want to kind of reiterate staging before Christy answers this. So I think staging is more important than ever. We kind of had 2 years where we didn't have to do that. So we kind of do a tiered commission, and, you know, you can charge whatever you want. We don't want to get into that talk, but kind of having options for people, I think, is really important. So Julie, I'm gonna let Christy answer your best, worst experience and how did you get your first seller?
Oh boy, best and worst. So my first deal, it was actually, they're now part of our family. Literally, they've bought 3 different properties. And he bought his first house sight unseen from across the country. My husband met this person at a triathlon in Mexico. And he's like, yeah, the guy, you know, I met him in Mexico. I think, you know, he reached out and said he was going to be visiting Denver. And, you know, he might have a job reload. I was like, oh, nice. Okay, cool. And so he literally Zoom internet shopped, and he's like, yeah, I want that one. And I'm like, oh my God, somebody's going to buy a whole house. And we haven't actually like been inside it. So no pressure, right? It was my first deal. And so you're scared of every little thing, all the bits of the contract. And am I doing it right? Am I doing it wrong? You have a million questions. And he was probably the best first client I could have ever dreamed. He's just a wonderful human being. And then a year later, he called me and he's like, Christy, I found a house. I'm like, I know, I sold it to you last year. And in my mind, I'm like, it was my first house too. I'll never forget. And he's like, no, I found the house. And so the first deal, super easy. Like I literally told my mentor, I felt bad taking my commission check because it was so easy. Like I didn't even literally have to, I opened the door for myself, not even for this guy. I didn't have to like, here's the kitchen, you know, the things that you do. And the second house was probably one of the hardest deals because the house was in the middle of being renovated. It was basically a builder who had purchased the home. They were gutting it and making it the farmhouse modern style that everyone, you know, the white and the black and kind of Scandinavian, and right down on Main Street in this very idyllic town. And it was a great deal. We got it off market. It wasn't even listed, right? They were in the middle of renovating it. And so I had to write a contract and include basically a new build style into, I had to include, like, right now the house doesn't have doorknobs. Like, I know you're going to put doorknobs on, but right now there's no doorknobs. And so we need to make sure there's doorknobs, there's a floor, there's paint. Like I literally had to write in the entirety of a new build contract. Everything was fine until the last, you know, couple months. And as happens with builds, there were delays and Airbnb snafus. And the builder, unfortunately, didn't have good building standard. And our state of Colorado contract says you buy the house as is, and they had some warranty issues. And so it became kind of a nightmare for that client. Obviously, I helped them as much as I could. I was like, you have to lawyer up. Like that's my worst. I always try to avoid everything we can, right? Where you never want someone to go to a place where they have to go to a lawyer because things have really gone sideways at that point, right? That they went from the perfect experience to we're literally having to pay somebody a lot of money to get us out of this bad situation that happened. And unfortunately, in that situation, the builder decided they were going to put interior siding on the outside of the house. And when in Colorado, we have snow, and that doesn't work. It just literally starts peeling off the house. And, you know, siding on an entire house is $60,000 to $100,000. And then everyone's like, whose fault is it? So for me, there wasn't anything, there was no failure on my part. I didn't know that they put interior siding on the outside of the house, right? But it was helping navigate them through that really, it was just an awful situation, right? Because they had this dream, like literally they just bought a house a year before and they gave that one up because this was such a dream for them. And it kind of turned into a nightmare for a while. And you just, you know, you have to do your best to navigate that journey with people and be the resource and the partner that they need you to be at that moment.
I love it. Well, the first one was definitely a nice gift because sometimes we don't always get that. So I'm glad you stayed in real estate to experience the hard one next, so you could realize what we all go through. But you stayed with it. You didn't give up, and you're still here. Most people get out of real estate that first year. I did put your Zillow link for the Slate property so everyone can see your staging. And since I do own a staging company, I'm going to tell you kudos. That is a beautiful, I love the wall in the office too. So I'm not sure who designed that. And then I uploaded a 3D tour, a Matterport for one of our recent listings we just staged. It's going live today. I'm not even sure it's live. So it better be by the end of the day or by tomorrow to follow clear cooperation. But you can see an example of one of ours too, which they didn't have any furniture. So we did very light kind of to show the space. It was not any of their furniture. So we had to bring everything in, and it was multiple levels because it's on the water. The first level here is non-conforming space, kind of like your basement in a way.
Yep.
So that'll give everyone, and we do stage outside of KW and for any agent. So if you ever, if you're in the kind of the 3-county area, we're not going down to Naples yet, Mark, but if we get down there, you have Heather Kane there though. She can help you. Mm-hmm. All right. I think that was it. I think Julia had asked about emojis and emails and texts. I personally like using them. I'm a DI, so I like to show my eye when I'm texting because sometimes I can't be face to face and I wish I could. So I do all my buyer consultations and listing consultations, even for my agents on my team. Like if I'm available, I'll help them do that on Zoom because some people aren't here yet. They're relocating from like maybe Colorado or California, so we can show face to face. But I love emojis. What do you think, Christy? That's our last question, then we'll let you get back to your day.
Yeah, I've definitely noticed not all platforms will allow you to put emojis in your subject line. I don't overuse them, but I definitely have noticed a higher hit rate and response rate and open rate when I do use them. It depends on the platform, and mountains here can weirdly look like volcanoes. So I have to be careful about picking the right emoji because you don't want it to look, that would be counter to what I'm trying to evoke in their sensory experience, right? Yeah, so I do use them. I don't use them every time. I try to be strategic about using them. I have noticed about, I would say I probably do it like 1 out of every 5 or 6 of our monthly communications that we do to clients. I'll do the like an emoji, a mountain or a sunshine, or if we're having an event, I'll put some sunglasses or a little cocktail beverage. If we're doing a grand opening, we'll do the 2 little champagne glasses or something like that. So, but I think the key is to use it sparingly. If you're doing it every time, it becomes cheesy. So I think you just have to be really careful about overusing it.
Yeah, we use the little coffee cup so they know that it's coffee time, which means they're getting their newsletter. So we are kind of cheesy, but it's my last name, so it works.
I don't have that. There's no Watson emoji.
We're going to make one for you after today. Well, thank you so much. We really appreciate you. Like I said, I got a lot out of this, so I'm probably going to go back and watch the recording to take my notes. I hope you all had taken notes. How can they find you on social media?
Yep. So Christy Watson Homes. It's just my first and last name. So Christy Watson Homes. And I'm on Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, all the things. Christy Hurley Watson is my personal. So I try to separate. I do a little bit of real estate on my personal, but if you want to know me as a person, my personal life, I've got 3 kids. We're big hockey fans. I've got a dog who thinks he's my 4th kid. And if you want to know about me as a person, you can always friend me on my personal page as well.
Perfect. And if you can't find her, just reach out to me. I'll be happy to connect. All right, everyone, go out and make it a great day. Thank you for joining us. We'll see you next month.